The first page of the pilot episode, a pair of trousers is falling down against the contrast of the blue sky and the red rock, hits this dirt, immediately runs over by a big wheel belonging to an RV driving recklessly. Cut to the inside. There's a man only in tighty-whitey underwear and a respirator driving madly. Next to him, passed out, is another man in a respirator. He looks behind him. There's two dead guys sliding up and back in a sea of glass and chemicals. It just catches you right away, and it took you on this ride.
I was on the phone to a buddy of mine. That buddy I was talking about, Tom Schnauz from NYU, and goofing around on the phone and actually truly worried about the fact that we didn't have much in the way of income coming in because I wasn't working in the moment, neither was he. We had both been on the X-Files together, and it had ended about 3 years prior to this conversation, and we were both thinking, Jesus, it's kind of dry out here. What are we going to do next? Like, what are we should do? We can get in some other line of work while the getting's good. And I think I'd be a good greeter at Walmart. You know, I think I'd be good at that. I say hi to people. And then he said, what about if we just pool our resources and buy an RV and put a meth lab in the back? I don't know what it was, but suddenly I was intensely intrigued, I'm not even sure where it came from, by the idea of a guy who would do such a thing, an otherwise good man doing a reprehensible deed in order to save his family. That was the early impetus. You notice watching that pilot episode that it opens with a flash forward. And the reason for that was a very meat and potatoes schematic one. It was, simply put, it was me as a writer thinking, I'm going to take a very bland, milquetoast-ish guy and turn him into a bad guy. But if I start him off bland, if I start at the beginning of the story and really take the time to set this character up for the audience, he's going to be kind of a bland character for the first act or two at least, and I really, want to grab him immediately and give him a reason to watch, hook him. I want to hook him from the start. What I want to do with this show is I want to take this Mr. Chips character and have him turn himself into Scarface.
Chemistry is the study of matter. But I prefer to see it as the study of change.
To change a character in a television series has never happened before in the history of television. To actually allow a character to change, it's always been about stasis.
The balance on the show is always taking him just far enough without taking him too far too fast.
To me, Walter White became so much more interesting when he stopped being a victim of the universe and he became a victim of himself. And the truth is, in hindsight, he was always a victim of himself. He says in that first clip you showed, I never get to make my own decisions. Life has made decisions for me. He's the architect of his own problems, as most of us are. Our fourth episode back in season 1, I think, was a turning point for us because up until that point, I felt like it was enough that Walt wanted to make money for his family. So we actually went the other direction in this fourth episode. We had someone, this Deus Ex Machina, kind of a moment where this rich figure from Walt's past comes to him and says, I heard about your cancer, I heard about your problems, I want to give you money, I want to pay for your treatment, I want to make things good. There's no earthly reason he should turn it down.
Right.
Not even as a point of pride or whatever. If you really want to provide for your family, you swallow your pride and you take this amazing deal, and instead, because of pride, because of ego, he goes back to cooking meth. That was the thing that surprised us the most about our own character.
Yeah.
It's when he kind of spoke to us and said, I need to go this way even though you think I'm going that way. And it was about the finest moment we had in the writer's room. If we hadn't gone that way, the show would have been very schematic, very mechanical. It would have quickly devolved into, okay, I need $137,000 by Wednesday, by 12 o'clock Wednesday. Oh wait, crows took my stack of $80,000 and they flew away and made a nest. I have to make more meth. I have to, there had to be some fundamental thing about this guy. It got really interesting when we realized he wasn't really doing it for his family. Walter White seems like the antithesis of a criminal when we first meet him. He really was meant to be a criminal. Jesse Pinkman, who when we meet him is a criminal, should never have been a criminal. Yes. You can think of people in your life who you don't like and yet to whom you are emotionally tied. And I think that's maybe the best way to look at Walt. There are moments when you say to yourself, this guy's a monster. And yet, a human monster. I mean, he's never going to be anything other than human. Because as we all do when we write characters, we have to wear them like overcoats. We have to see through their eyes. We have to know what it feels like to be them, even for, the few hours it takes to write a particular scene, because We want the scene to live and breathe. We want to give something to the actors that they're able to really inhabit. It seems so obvious now, but it took me the longest time to figure out that nobody thinks of themselves as a bad guy, because we all feel this way. We all feel like we're pretty much in the right. What I've come to realize is he's one of the world's most adept liars, and he lies first and foremost to himself. This is a guy who deludes himself at every turn about why he does the things he does, about who he is and what kind of morality and goodness he possesses. This is a man who still thinks of himself as a good provider and a good man.
Well, what's interesting is, one of the big quotes everybody does is I'm the one who knocks. And it's presented as this like super badass, like I'm the danger, I'm the one who knocks. But if you think about the scene, it's him bullying his wife because she's made him feel small.
The further irony is in that scene, it's like that great line in Casablanca, you remind me of a man who's desperately trying to convince himself of something that he doesn't believe. Right. Walt is trying to convince himself when he says, I am the one who knocks, of something that he, in that particular moment, somewhere deep inside knows not to be true.
I am the one who knocks.
So oddly enough, people think of writing as dialogue, and to me, writing is structure. Dialogue is the cherry on top. The cherry on top does not support the ice cream sundae. It's a delicious little added thing, but the real storytelling, the real structuring, which is often something in TV we do, all the writers together in a room working and not actually typing anything, but just talking, just verbalizing. That to me is the hard part of writing, the structuring, the building the scaffolding, the skeleton of the story, if you will. We would sit in front of a cork board 3 feet by 5 feet with a big thing of thumbtacks and a big thing of index cards and a whole bunch of Sharpie magic markers. And we'd sit there and we'd say, okay, what's the teaser? And you build it brick by brick. Each card represents a plot beat. Not necessarily a scene, but 3 or 4, 6, 8 cards might represent one scene. And by the end of it, you filled up this entire 3 foot by 5 foot corkboard with a teaser and the 4-act structure. The trick in the room is to have no line in the room. There is definitely, as you say, a line on the show, but in the room you must surpass the line every day. I guess my philosophy is you can't know where the line is on the page in the script until you've blown way past it. Sometimes you think of a great scene. Oh, we really want to have a head on a turtle and then have it blow up or whatever. That's well and good, but if you have to drive square pegs into round holes in order to get to that great scene, then you're doing it wrong. We just questioned everything. We thought of every possibility, but then we had to sort of vet it against, is it legitimate as to the character's forward momentum?
We had a mantra, really. It was, where's Walt's head at? And that applied to all the other characters. Where's Skylar's head at? Where's Jesse's head at? And we spent countless hours asking that same question for all of our characters over and over again.
That was always the prelude to the breakthrough moment, because when you said that, it's usually because we had gotten attached to some big plan or some big set piece scene that we thought had to be there, but the characters didn't want to do what we wanted to do.
A story, B story, C story, runner, it doesn't mean anything if you don't know where the characters' heads are at.
There was very little, what do we want to have happen? It's what would he do next? We would come up with these great scenes or ideas, but it was really step by step, what in this position, knowing what we know about this guy, what is his next move?
When people ask me about writing, they're like, oh, well, how do you figure out your theme? And I never think of theme because it's about, well, what's the story I'm telling about this character and where does that lead them? And then those themes come out.
You asked me if I was in the meth business or the money business. Neither. I'm in the empire business.
Smart is good, dramatically, because I'll give a good example. One of the biggest fears we had in the writer's room in season 4, which was the big season-long chess match between Walter White and Gus Fring, the guy who was arguably even smarter than Walt. The big worry that year was we knew Gus had to lose. We knew the town's not big enough for the both of them after this season. One has to go. It ain't going to be Walt. So how do we allow Gus to lose, but not by getting stupid in the 11th hour? And we kept thinking of the chess analogy. You got Spassky and you've got Bobby Fischer, both of them brilliant, but there's got to be a weak link in the chain or whatever the analogy is. Yeah. One of them's got to make
A slightly wrong move.
Yeah,
that the other
slightly
can
wrong
exploit.
move, and we don't want it to come from stupidity. Our best thought and what we wound up going with is it comes from emotion. I can't think of a movie where I like it that the bad guy gets dumb, because it's like I want the bad guy to be smart, so the good guy has to be even smarter.
Enjoy your meal.
I love it when people think we played a very deep game, but the thing that we mostly did was look back at the tools we had at hand and the options we had at hand and said, oh, let's make use of this. People say, do you like being a writer? And I always say, I like having written. Past tense. It's always satisfying, pretty much always satisfying in past tense, but the job itself is like driving nails into your forehead. I think what interests us typically as human beings is people who have the will or the courage to live outside of society's strictures. Some little part of us, when we're feeling powerless or feeling unnoticed or whatever, there's something about living large that intrigues us. And Walter White is sort of the poster child for that. He's a guy who lived for 50 years unnoticed, and a lot of his decisions were based on fear of taking chances, and then suddenly one day he stops worrying. And I think a life without fear intrigues us as well, and I know it does me.
Hello everyone, thanks for watching. On this channel, we are going to be learning how some of the best TV shows and films were created, hearing from the creators themselves. If this is something that would be interesting to you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and join us as we take a look behind the curtain.